let's hear it for Solana here. This is from Tarun. He's one of the venture capitalists. Um, I forgot what it's called.
What are the pros of the Cardano ecosystem?
They wrote the first paper that proved why Bitcoin has achieved safety and liveness in 2015.
Good job, Cardano community.
Yes, unfortunately, everything else maybe not so good. But okay, I think the interesting thing about Solana is, for the first time ever since 2018 or 2019, did I meet like developers who are like, you sent a transaction or wrote code for the legacy platforms. Where in 2018, it was like all the ETH developers, like the Hayden from Uniswaps of the world, were like, I've never sent a Bitcoin transaction, but like, of course I sent ETH transactions. And at the Solana conference, unlike, say, like some of the other L1s, I've met people who are like, I've never sent an ETH transaction, I've never sent a Bitcoin transaction, but I've used Solana and I write Solana. And I was like shocked at how many of those.
And what do they do on Solana?
So I think that's a good point for Solana. So Tarun is basically saying that it reminds him of what's happening on ETH on the 2018, that the ETH people basically saying, oh, I never send a Bitcoin transaction, I just use ETH, to transact. And then now what's happening in the Solana, because he went to the Solana conference in Amsterdam recently, the Solana Breakpoint, like, I don't know, 1 week, 2 weeks ago. So he basically met the developers in Solana saying kind of reminiscing the same thing as the ETH developers, which basically they were saying, I just use Solana. I never use Bitcoin and I never use Ethereum for transaction. I just use Solana. So
weirdly, it's like really crappy NFTs, like really crappy, like cheap.
Yep, I can testify on that. That Solana is basically is so much cheaper, the NFTs, than the ETH. Like the Pang is like, I don't know, 40 ETH, which is 40 times 2,000. That's like 40 times $800,000. 800,000, almost a million, right? Solana is like, I don't know. You can get the most expensive one would be, I think, back then was like probably 1,000, 2,000, something like that. So it's like in order of like 100x cheaper, kind of, sometimes more.
The crappy NFTs. It's a lot of like. So the thing is, Solana doesn't have many tokens. So actually, it had a ton of tokens in 2021, 2022. Those were all the SAM coins, as described in the trial, all worthless and zero. And so then Solana kind of had this like, clearly there was no other token other than Sol realistically, like there were a few of them. But Solana's staking yield was actually quite high. They still have relatively high inflation, but they didn't have, and they had this kind of weird.
The Solana staking yield is about 6%. If you go to like a Cheeto, whatever, where is that Cheeto? I can show it to you. Cheeto. It's one of the staking yield. Stake now. Yeah, so here we go. 6.68. Then this is already enhanced with the MEV, which is basically it's like a system or a fee that that you get from like the spread of the between the buyer and seller, something like that, as a validator. Okay, let's hear it some more.
Competitive staking market, but recently sort of Jito has sort of, disclosure, we're investors in it, has sort of like started
nice. to... He's a investor of Jito. Cool.
Really kind of take over the market there. So I think there's much more accessible Solana yield, which has helped make the ecosystem have a little more like DeFi related stuff working out. And what was interesting is a lot of the projects that I would call like the cockroaches, they like maybe raised in 2021. They didn't.
So he's calling the project cockroaches. That's so funny.
Pivot to AI. They didn't die due to FTX taking all their funds, which non-trivially hard. Like there's a lot of things you could have fucked up very easily, and like being in the bubble, you very high chance of dying. But the projects that survived, like the margin drift, Jito, etc., they all are all getting ready, so it seemed, and some of them had announcements of tokens.
So margin is like a lending protocol in Solana. The Jito, of course, is kind of staking protocol. Drift is like more like a perpetual. You can get all the information from here under Gen and then go to Solana here. So here's the go. So this is like the top one is Marinet Finance is staking. This is like a lending protocol. This is also kind of like lending protocol. And then Drift. This is a on-chain cross margin perps. So it's like perpetual. It's like a derivative basically. Yeah.
To start having tokens. So I think there's also this thing where people are getting ready for the retro airdrops of Solana, and I think whoever survived is sort of like the cockroach that survived the nuclear explosion, and they seem to be like kind of doing
The
well.
cockroach that survived the nuclear explosion.
There's that. The second thing is like I've never in Ethereum conferences and hackathons, you oftentimes meet really awesome developers, but like you don't meet that many who are like, I want to work on payments, which, it sounds like the most boring application, right? You maybe used to in 2019, but now if you go, it's like everyone wants to do ZK identity. They want to do some like kind of complicated type of thing. But in Solana, there's a lot of like, we want to do like USDC payments in like a weird wallet for Zimbabwe. Like it's very, it is actually like, it reminds me of Ethereum hackathons in 2019, whereas Ethereum hackathons now are way more focused on higher end technology ideas. And so I think there's kind of this like baseline of people who just are completely coming new to crypto, who were only brought into crypto by 2021, and Solana happened to be the place they went, and they have no, I guess they don't talk to other people who are in other parts of crypto, and so they're just in that ecosystem. So it's like the only L1 that I feel like has this completely organic, unique ecosystem, because like the EVM L1, so the one,
it's the only L1 that has completely organic ecosystem. That's a high statement coming from Tarun. The only L1 so far from his point of view, okay? The only L1.
Ones that are compatible with Ethereum, they have a lot more like founders who just like moved around, right? It's like Trader Joe moved from Avalanche to Arbitrum, and then they had more success in Arbitrum. So then, like the EVM people didn't really have much. There's no stickiness other than ETH mainnet, because they all deployed eventually to ETH mainnet. But in Solana, like
There's nowhere else to go.
Nowhere else to go. But like if you look at other ecosystems, I didn't go to the Near conference, which is right now. Otherwise, I would have been able to give a comparison. But it doesn't feel, there is like this real notion of people go in and this is their first experience, and it must have been, it reminds me so much of 2018 Ethereum, where people are like, I bought some shitcoin in 2017 and then I like decided to work on a project.
So this is really important. He's going to talk about the well effect, which is basically people who buys a token for the first time Solana, and then because of this, the past 2-3 months, because Solana jumped like 2 times or even 3 times, right? From like, I think low is like $70, now it's like 40 something, right? That's called the well effect. That makes people stay. And just listen to this.
Like the Solana wealth effect of like, I bought Sol and I like made a bunch of money and now I'm just going to like work on Solana projects. The wealth effect is real there. And
So I mean, that's a little bit curious to me too, because it must be just sort of time weighted that most people, even in Solana, have lost money, right? Because like it moved so rapidly and it had such a dramatic ascent, both in terms of price and in terms of notoriety, when it shot all the way to.
I love how Tarun faces now. He's like, what are you talking about, Hoship? No, that's different. That's the people who lost money. I'm talking about the people who buy the Sol token for the first time, you know? Of course, there's a bunch of people who lost money. It's the same thing as Ethereum too, but that's besides the point, I think.
200 and then gradually was kind of taking its way down, and that was like when Sam was at the top of his empire and he was really pushing the Solana narrative. it must be that most people have actually not made money on net, right? We're in a bear. I mean, we're more or less in a bear.
Yeah, but my point is, like, I'm looking at the conditional
I love how he's responding to his
distribution of the ones who did.
Fair enough.
And those are the ones who are. That my point is
So
that's a
how-
large enough subset.
Yeah. So I get it for NFTs. I get it for a lot of other things, but for developers, it seems surprising to me that like where I made money is coupled with where I am developed, because a lot of people buy a lot of tokens.
One way of thinking about this, which is slightly different, which is where I made money means I can quit my job, my normal dev job, for like 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. And so I've bought myself like a few years of like not doing things. And that thing that bought me that, I spend time reading a lot of the docs, I spend time meeting people at these conferences, and then I start writing code for it. And I think there is this effect that Solana seems to be the only ecosystem I can for sure know. Like I said, I didn't go to NIR's conference, so I don't know right now. But Solana definitely has this. There is really clearly this like whoever survived is like doing well. Like they're still working on stuff. It's like doesn't feel like Zombie Land, which is like a very unique thing to them as far as I can tell. Whereas like, you know, I think in other L1 ecosystems, it's usually what happens is like when things crash, it becomes extremely adversarial and dog eat dog, and everyone's trying to undercut each other, and then like they kind of kill their ecosystem, right? I think you've seen this in a bunch of other places. I won't name them.
So did you guys hear that? He basically mentioned Turun that he thinks that so far, besides I think he hasn't gone to near that. Solana is the only L1 that has this. He's gonna say it later. Is like instead of dog eating dog, because after the destruction of 2018 at the FTX, the Sam Bankman-Fried, the collapse of like other stuff, right? It just basically is like survived nuclear explosion. You know, it's just like Japan is like the Hiroshima Nagasaki being bombed by the nuclear explosion, and it survived that, and then they stay there, and then they're going back right now, you know. So that's like I don't know how do you say it. It's I think it's building a really strong army. I wouldn't say army. It's like a strong camaraderie, because you know you're forged under fire, right? You go through the hardship together, and then you survive, and then you came out stronger. It's like saying that if it doesn't kill you, it's gonna make you stronger. So that's what's happening in Solana. And like 2 years ago, it's almost kind of kill them, but somehow some people like stay there, stick their guns there. Some more people coming in for first time, buying a Sol token, and then they managed to write this like so-called like grueling, like fire intense, like doomers, like negativity. And then now it's like it seems to be they're slowly coming out of it, and this makes it like really, I think the community is going to be like even stronger. And then community is kind of like the number one thing in crypto, because this is kind of like a grassroots movement.
Their armies don't go after me. But you've seen that kind of like the bear market leads to like all the projects fighting with each other, and then there's a zero sum thing, and like and Solana somehow doesn't have that zero sum mindset as much. It's like very.
Well, I think all that zero sum mindset was encapsulated into SBF.
Yes.
And he was defenestrated all.
And everyone who's survived is like, oh, we survived despite that, and so they're way less. They don't have.
It is definitely the most incredible story in the history of L1s is Solana's reversal from being basically this more or less exchange chain of FTX,
so I really
and
like
being
that.
completely kind of under their thumb and subject to their
Zero-sum
distribution,
mentality. It's like
surviving
win-win mentality.
the biggest fraud basically in the last decade, being at the center of their blockchain, and still never.
I mean, it was their DAO hack,
Victorious.
right? And if you survive it, if you, I feel like almost like religious texts, a chain needs to have like this one like Gilgamesh flood moment.
Totally.
And like
the Night of the
that's
Soul,
the
like,
thing that
through.
keeps you, and everyone who survives that's like the branding of like you made it into the real league of
The real league.
I don't know what else to call it, the real L1 league. Like, but like
How many L1s are real?
4.
I don't know. I don't. That's a good question. It's
So I guess that's about it, folks. Yeah, so I'm really I've been following Solana the past like 2 3 years ago, so since I was in crypto, and then this is like another confirmation, another strong signal for me that Solana is not just surviving, but it's also thriving, and it's also showing in the price. Although I'm trying not to look at the price so much, it's really tempting. But from my point of view, yeah. So if you survive really really bad things, that's a really good, that's really good because it makes you stronger. It makes the community stronger. It bonded like the developers, the community together. um, and then this is also like coming from the other Alliance DAO. I don't know. There's another podcast that I've been listening to that they also like confirm this that besides Ethereum, the number two developers, the one that's like really big. Okay, I have to go now right now. I want to know what's your thought on this. I'll see you soon. That's my. How do I turn this off?